action here this weekend, the home of the Texas Sprint Racing Series. As always, my name is Caleb Viesca. Alongside me here this weekend, Justin Prince. As many of you guys may have heard of him last weekend. But Justin, we're 581 miles away from where this all kicked off at Speed Sports Racing Park for the opening round of the biggest regional racing series in the nation. And we're back here this weekend with more racing action. My friend, a pleasure to be sharing the booth with you here this weekend. What have you seen from the Texas regional, racing scene right so far? I know we walked the paddock a little bit yesterday.
I know there's a lot of drivers that are expecting it to be really interesting, to say the very least, especially with expected to be a night weekend when it comes to this festivities for this series. So for a lot of drivers, but trying to get the speed, trying to battle with the grip, especially since they say it's a very grippy track in general, but also making sure once you get to those later conditions here today, you know where your marks are in the midst of some of these battles. Right now, these drivers currently getting their cars all warmed up and sorted out for today's action. It should be interesting to see where they stack up with the warm-up at least before they go qualifying it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the song goes, right? Amarillo by morning, but we're not going to do any morning racing here. We're going to do some, I guess you can say, midnight racing out here later on this weekend. Again, the lights have been a huge addition by Kyle Uchinsky, the entire Amarillo Kart Complex and crew to get this race racing under the lights of Brittany Lobo as well, adjusting the schedule for all at home. And again, right, yesterday the big topic out of practice was the visibility into the night racing conditions. And later on today, we have a practice session that won't be live, but at the end of the day, they're going to try to adjust and see where they can, fix everything. So tomorrow, whenever we do get into main event racing action and heat racing action, it is safe for all the drivers and well visible for all the drivers as well as they try to kick things off. On the racetrack now, 206 Junior, presented by TB Kart USA. Rodrigo Polaya leads this field away so far, a driver in a CRG just right behind him. And again, we're seeing a lot of different racing compared to what we saw last week, right, Justin? I mean, we talked about 206 racing and how important it was at a racetrack like this with the long straightaways here. We talked about gearing a little bit yesterday. We were showing you around, and it's fine margins at a place like this where, you have the draft that's coming into effect. Gearing is the other big thing, especially in low momentum classes like this. Yeah,
absolutely, especially trying to find that fine-tuning with that rear end in terms of the gearing. Trying to find that balance between, do you want speed in the corners or do you want speed down the straightaways? And with a track like this, especially with long straightaways, where you can build up some draft and maybe some momentum, especially the run up from turn 9 all the way to turn 11, that's going to be an area where a lot of these drivers will be hoping the slipstream comes into play, and where that setup is going to be very beneficial for those who prioritize the straight line speed here in Amarillo for this weekend. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, again, right, we talk about some of the teams, some of the different, faces that we see here this weekend. This being a regional racing series, right, you have a lot of families come out here in the back of their trucks in a small trailer, just a 10x10 pop-up tent, and they're able to do, work wonders with that. And you also have your big teams, right, here the home base at Amarillo Kart Complex, TB Kart USA. It's the Lime Green Nation, like they like to call it here. And, those drivers, they're definitely going to be quick. We talk about the KA seniors that are hitting the racetrack next. It's been a huge effort by the entire TB Kart USA team to get them up and running. And here in this junior class, you have the likes of Green, Edwards representing the Lime Green TB Karts. There's a 372 on your screen. Pushing along Brandon Green there on the 330. So look for these two drivers, try to take a win on home soil for their team here this weekend, Justin.
That's going to be very important for pride and very important for the organization, because there's a good 15, 20 carts in the garage set up for the TB Kart headquarters alone here this weekend. A lot of those drivers we got the chance to speak with, having a lot of positivity about this race weekend and a lot to say in regards to their expectations to perform well, to say the very least. So it's going to be interesting where they all stack up as the running goes over. Right now, some of those TB Karts lower down the order. Looks like the 316 having to pull it to the side.
Yeah, that's Levi Meter on the CRG here this weekend. He's going to be out of the session a little early. We saw his hand in the air just a couple of moments ago on your screens, and he pulled off to the wayside. He's going to be out of this session early. But for another one of the teams, Rod Clenard, his camp out of the Heart of Texas Kart Club in Waco, Texas. They're here representing this weekend on their CRG FS4s. And for them, the 333 of Mia Johnson going to represent for GRC Motorsports here this weekend. And, you know, the coolest thing about coming to races like this, right, you see a lot of chassis variation, a lot of different, you know, teams and a lot of different faces as well. You have the CRGs, TB Kart, GFC with Trackside Karting Services, Tim Lobo on his operation that's been super quick all year long. A Kubica kart here on your screen with the 311 of Dean Guerrier. He's been super quick all year long, and he's going to look to take victory here this weekend at Amarillo Kart Complex. So he's out there on the racetrack as well. You got a couple of Coyotes that have, you know, showed up with John Seglum, you know, James Overbeck, Christopher McKeithen. They were here for the opening round, opening weekend. Shane Reddy as well with them and with their camp. Not sure if Shane Reddy is here this weekend. Haven't seen them so far, but again, just a little bit too far away, right, in Amarillo. I mean, for us, I live in Houston, Texas. 8 hours for myself, Trevor Blue, and the entire Kart Chaser team to work our way out here, right? And, you know, I can't imagine the haul from Florida for John Seglum and his Coyote camp. They should be joining us back for round number 3, where I believe it takes us to one of the tracks in Dallas, either Dallas Kart Complex or Kart Moto, the great edition that we had last year that raced like an absolute super speedway. Somebody dropping a tire off the grass. And as well, we talk about new additions. This last corner, we saw it new at the closing round of TSRS. And again, it's back here with us, and it adds a little bit of a Supernats feel, right? You have the front straightaway with the big, tall barriers, and as well the temporary barriers that, you know, are permanent here at Amarillo Kart Complex, adding for the safety and you know, what is the run onto that front straightaway. But this track, I mean, you know, the views, you know, they're great, right? You have the highway right next to us, Highway 40, I believe, right next to us, and then the windmill is just right behind. So whenever the sun set, I'm sure our camera guys are going to be having a field day with the amazing shots that this place provides.
Yeah, I-40 just around the corner here from this racetrack. In fact, the exit within 2 minutes of the entrance to the racetrack.
I'd say it's about 30 seconds. It feels more like 30 seconds, Justin, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a little bit more closer, but regardless, you get that opportunity just driving by. It's very flat, obviously, in this part of Texas as well. So you have a lot of space where you see the farmland all around and the various different pastures within the region here and within the vicinity of the racetrack. But it also allows for a lot of opportunity, as you can see, if you end up going to the grass, a lot of space to run off into the green pastures of somewhere safe to be able to pull off the racetrack. But safety important in that final section where it's a lot more tighter, absolutely, to avoid significant issues, to avoid any issues in terms of accidents or anything along those lines. As Chambers, the driver coming in as the points leader for the class, comes to the top of the board in the warm-up.
Yeah, how about Sawyer Chambers? I mean, you know, one of the young additions here this weekend. He's been really quick. Moved up from cadet early last year. Just wanted to get up, you know, with the bigger kids, right? Wanted to race in junior, and he's showing his pace here early on his Intrepid. Sawyer Chambers, quickest of the morning session here in 206 Junior, a 117.299. Right behind him out of Speed Sports Racing Park, Rodrigo Poloya in second. Back to Dean Guerrier, Mia Johnson in fourth, Holton Edwards, your top 5 at the end of 206 Junior warm-up, presented by TB Kart USA. The schedule looks a little bit different, but if we can, why don't we show you, you know, what these drivers are going to be facing here at Amarillo Kart Complex with our track map. And we'll see, you know, we talked about the straightaways, we talked about the corners. Turn number 1 to me is one of the ones that's, you know, it's make or break there, right? It sets you up for what's going to be turn number 4 all the way down the straightaway. You're getting pretty close to the highway at that point, so that's a long run, and, you know, that's not one of our biggest passing zones. Turn number 8 is going to be one of the biggest ones where people try to set up moves, and there you see it there on the middle of the racetrack, just you know, it cuts through. And, you know, for those of you at home, Formula One fans, if you guys remember back to 2020 and 2021, the Istanbul, this is the exact replica, but for karting. So we talked about, you know, what looks to be turn number 6, my apologies, here is one of the biggest passing zones. Turn number 8 as well. You'll see a lot of moves down the inside, and you have to build a really good run, especially. It's all about setting up. We talk about a high-speed chess match. It's all about that when you get to turn number 8. You work all the way down to turn number 11. That, again, is a big passing zone. And we talked about turn number 1. If you're going to pass somebody in turn number 1, you're going to screw up their momentum, and you might even screw your momentum up as well. So we'll see some sparks flying figuratively and literally here later on today, Justin.
And it's a very narrow section to that run through turn 1. We were talking about that last night, where the first thought is that looks like a single file line that you can get through, because it goes from about 4 or 5 kart lengths wide down the front straightaway down to maybe 2 at very best, and that's if you significantly compromise each other's lines. So it's a tough area, I think, that first corner to really make some sense, as you said, around this racetrack. The biggest chances will be that long run through 9 all the way to 11, where a lot of these drivers are going to try and build runs. By the time they get up to the inside of 11, they're going to have to be hard on the brakes to make sure they get it slowed on down without any troubles by the time they get to the chicane section, the newer area in 12 and 13.
Yeah, we'll see, how it all ends up. But KA Senior, next on the docket here for your morning warm-up session. I shouldn't even say morning. I guess we should say afternoon warm-up session. It is 3:30 here Central Time and 4:30 Eastern Time. We'll be right back with more racing action. You're watching Kart Chasers live coverage of the Texas Sprint Racing Series.
Let's go race.
Come on, man.
Florida Kart Racers, you asked for it and we're going to bring it. Introducing Florida Karting Championship, FLKC, a brand new racing series coming to Florida in 2026.
KA Senior presented by Kart CRG USA, getting set to hit the racetrack now, and their driver Aiden Rudolph, a last-minute entry at his backyard at Speed Sports Racing Park, puts him in the championship points on what's going to be a full schedule of TSRS racing action here for this one. As well as Jesus Vasquez Jr., the reigning champ, returns here this weekend with Trackside Karting Services GFC. Teammate Landon Skinner right alongside him on the racetrack, as well as a couple of other young guns racing on home soil here this weekend. Jake Faulkner, one of our own. John Burke on his return to a full season of racing here this year with TB Kart USA. That call came in from Kyle Uchinsky, picked it up, took the opportunity, and he's here racing with us. It's been a while since we've seen John Burke race a full year and a full schedule of racing on what's a for sure campaign here at the Texas Sprint Racing Series, as well as a couple of the other chassis and manufacturers. Billy Musgrave on property here racing in the shifter category. He's going to go head-to-head with Aiden Rudolph in that one. But as well here for them, Alex Pope, Jake French, doing some testing, doing some development on that factory kart machine. And again, for Jake, a huge congrats to him and his now wife on just tying the knot just recently. I know Billy was there, and he definitely enjoyed it, but said he had to, turn right around from that wedding and get ready for round number 2.
Yeah, huge congratulations to them as they have that celebration together now for those respective two. But it's going to be interesting where these drivers in this field stack up as a class here this weekend. There are a lot of big names in this field that have competed at the national level. We were talking about this before, like Carlos Fernandez in particular, that show good speed right now, top of the board in session. Peyton Phillips comes to mind, for example. You also have Justin Musak, who's looked very good in his starts whenever we've seen him on the racetrack. So a long list of drivers overall that are going to be competing for speed and time here to try and improve and try and get themselves to the top of the board for when they get to qualifying later.
Yeah, and we look back at round number 1. To me, the most impressive, Jose Carlos Hernandez. Again, he's helped the development of the Red Speed Racing Texas team alongside Jonathan, team owner and team manager, if you want to call it. They, the two of them have been working, tirelessly to get that program up and running, and to see them with a full tent. With a good number of senior drivers here this weekend. The names of Ethan Gonzalez as well as Santi Duran, who's now at the top of the timing charts. You see the two of them on your screens now. That team has been impressive. The turnaround to get themselves up and running as soon as they did, and to be competitive as well in their first race in regional racing action. I was fortunate enough to do a club race not too long ago, and they were the talk of the town, right? Red Speed Texas, they were that new team, young team that everybody was talking about, and with star power like Jose Carlos Hernandez and a couple of young guns like Santi Duran, who's been impressive at the national level. We'll see how they do here at round number 2, but they're coming into this weekend leading the championship. I should say we're leading the championship. I believe Rudolph is the driver who leads the championship coming into this weekend here.
Yeah, 290 points. The differential compared to Hernandez is 275 per the point tallies. Yeah, Vasquez Jr. also in the conversation with 250. Only 5 drivers, that including James Overbeck, mind you, scored more than 200 points in that opening round back in February. But this is a very different type of racetrack compared to what we've seen back then for a lot of these competitors to really fly around this racetrack. And mind you, a lot of these drivers in their KA100s building up a lot of speed as this qualifying, or rather this warm-up session goes on. Drivers have picked up at least a second or so as time has gone on in this session so far in just a couple laps.
Yeah, the two Red Speed machines working quite well together. Again, top of the timing charts for Jose Carlos Hernandez, a 106.990. Duran back to Dallas Dunlap on home soil here this weekend. I should say home soil, but home soil for the team, right? Home race for them. He's in third. He's been super impressive out here as well. And John Burke not too far behind. He currently sits fifth. Peyton Phillips out there on the racetrack himself, and Landon Wilkins taking head of the Arcane Motorsports operation here this week with Trevor McAllister out this weekend, I believe, moving into a new home this weekend. So huge congrats to Trevor for his move, and as well, putting the faith in the likes of Landon Wilkins, Peyton Phillips to get this operation up and running. And, even watching yesterday from the fence line, Phillips was quite impressive. We saw that he was one of the drivers that was driving that first turn better than anybody else, and we'll see what kind of lap he can put in this time by, given he did have to make a move that time around. But for Arcane, a fresh look this year, and Peyton Phillips, the main man, who was impressive in speed sports. He had a good showing last weekend as well, getting himself up there in the national circuit. As well, we talked about Rudolph championship points leader, and this is a racetrack where it just slipped away from him last year, coming into the final round, needing just that little bit after missing out at Dallas Kart Complex. This weekend, he looks to try and put something together for Kart CRG USA on what was a ride that was put together quite late. They had to build that chassis last minute, last second, put all that together in the end to race at Speed Sports Racing Park. That's the 929 of Alex Pope, his factory kart machine, out of this session early. But again, for Rudolph, just bittersweet taste at this racetrack, right? Was able to take the victory last year, but just missed out on the championship by a couple of points. And for Trackside Karting Services GFC, their main man, Jesus Vasquez Jr. with, again, one of the young guns that we saw last year, now a sophomore in this class, Landon Skinner. He's leading this field away with a 106.752.
Yeah, I got the chance to speak with Vasquez Jr. last week when he was competing in the SCUSA Pro Tour about this race. And he mentioned it's the expectation in this class and for him where you're going to be carrying a lot of full throttle, where you're going to have to be smart on your moves as a result, with a lot of speed having to be carried around Amarillo. And really, it's going to be team-to-team differential on how they have that chassis set up and how comfortable it is. But for many of these drivers, it's going to be about, can they maintain momentum and speed for these major drafting sections to really solidify a lot of these passing opportunities. We've seen a few drivers test out those runs throughout the practice session, mind you, but it's going to get a whole lot more different when we go racing in the dark later on today, or at least the late evening.
Yeah, checkered flag in the air. Nobody able to go faster than Landon Skinner and Jesus Vasquez Jr., the two Trackside Karting Services GFCs. Absolutely rolling here in the evening to start things off. Jose Carlos Hernandez not too far behind with Red Speed. Santi Duran in fourth. Sawyer Roussel with GWR, a top 5 finish here at the end of the warm-up sessions. He finds himself in fifth. Peyton Phillips not too far behind in sixth. To Dunlap, to Cruz, John Burke, Pico, and French up in 211. Justin Music, Roberts, Rudolph, and Haymans, your top 15 drivers in practice number 1. So we'll see what we do. And again, 38 drivers total, 183 entries here this weekend, Justin, with 39 in KA Senior, one of our marquee classes, and the other one, 206 Senior, with 30. Everything in the double digits here this weekend, even except for our shifter drivers, but we have a good showing across all classes. Our kit carters with 11, Mini Swift with 21, Micro Swift with 14 here this weekend, Junior with 12, Cadet with 19, and again, qualifying. That's what it's all about here at Amarillo Kart Complex. Put yourself in a good position to start things out. A quick break from our side. We'll be back at about 4 local time, a quick drivers meeting. 5 o'clock Eastern. We'll be right back with the qualifying action. As always, you're watching Kart Chasers live coverage of the Texas Sprint Racing Series. We'll be right back with more.
Brandon, why are there all these charges for just over $200?
I'm tired of all this branding business, okay? Branding this, branding that. Why are there all these expenses on AKR over $200? We know, okay? Take a walk with me. At Shop AKR, they have everything you need to start racing at a very cheap and affordable price. They have MXC rims, they got chains, electrical stands, tilt seats. They got MXCs. And if you didn't know, on top of that, any purchase in the continental US over $200, that's free shipping.
Hey, aren't you supposed to be in the AKR Anonymous meeting over there?
Dude, I'm doing a commercial.
Dude, we have no time. It's about to start.
Stop. We all love Shop AKR. Me? More than others. What do I get at Shop AKR?
MXC rims.
Kyle, what are you doing?
It's got my new Greyhound seat.
You don't even have a cart.
Doesn't matter. I have a Greyhound.
Who the f is Kyle Cuthbertson? Doesn't even have a go-kart.
Doesn't matter.
Cuthbertson through on Turney. Turney in the dirt.
If you want beautiful, solid wood, made in America dining room furniture, come out and see the new selection of beautiful dining room tables, chairs at Gallery Furniture, and best of all, buy this beautiful, oh so comfortable, made in America dining room furniture, tables, chairs, servers. Gallery Furniture delivers free to Houston area home in 3 or 4 hours tonight. Make family members on your beautiful new dining room table and chairs. Buy it today. New arrivals, Gallery Furniture delivers free in 3 or 4 hours to your home today.
Florida Kart Racers, you asked for it and we're going to bring it. Introducing Florida Karting Championship, FLKC, a brand new racing series coming to Florida in 2026.
Countdown to green is over. We are set to go green here for the qualifying session. Out there on the racetrack now, Maverick Reddick and company going to lead this field away. He's been the driver that everybody's been chasing so far on his Kart CRG USA machine. Right behind him, Vettel Baker on the MSL Racing CRG. Just behind as well a couple of others that were impressive at the opening weekend. The likes of Wylan Galliano out there on the racetrack now. He's been quite impressive so far this year here, Justin. But like I said earlier, everybody's been chasing this young kid out in front. The 75 so far has been impressive here at Amarillo with Cameron Weinberg on the wrenches for him this weekend. And as always, you and Jeffrey coaching this young star up to the front of the field. Booker Anderson just right behind him. Liam Lofton, Galliano to Maxwell, DeShong, Sutton, Mondragon, Lorang, and Hollis, your 11 kit cards here presented by GR2 Motorsports. The first couple laps getting set to go underway here, Justin, and I feel like this class more than others, right? It's all about not hitting those brakes. It's important in this class, especially kit kart, to be full gas around this entire racetrack, and you see all the mechanics, all the driver coaches telling their drivers to just, get on the gas, don't let off it, because that's what it takes to go fast around a place like this.
Yeah, especially since these are young drivers. They are learning and trying to develop their skill sets as time goes on. And better yet, with these karts, not a lot of overall speed at the top end you can see just by the eye test. So it's not like compared to some of the others where you might be going near double the speed in terms of straight line around the racetrack. I'm curious to see where we see Maverick Reddick line up.
Oh, we got two drivers together here, the 33 of Booker Anderson, and it looks like the 41 there as well, Liam Lofton, the AR Academy CRG, and what I think is the GRC CRG of Booker Anderson got together there, locked the front bumper on the rear bumper, and those two drivers slowed way down. A couple of the other young guns starting to catch up here. There's a 99 of Maxwell. Anderson was able to pass them. But, yeah, unfortunate incident for those two drivers there, Justin.
Yeah, that's going to cost him a lot of spots in terms of the queue at the very least here in this qualifying session. I will say one thing I did notice for this weekend, we have nearly double the amount of drivers competing in kid karts compared to the 6 that took part in the points tally for the opening round of the season. So a lot more young drivers making their way out to Amarillo to try and see, can they perform and be able to say, I can get myself a victory. Vettel Baker in particular led final practice earlier on today. He's going to be someone to keep an eye on in the 22 as well as these drivers zip on by the front straightaway.
We'll see what the lap times look like this time by. Vettel Baker goes to the top. He went quicker than Mav Reddick that last time around. And I think from the looks of it, it could be Vettel Baker just getting that draft from the rear bumper of Maverick Reddick here at Amarillo Kart Complex, which, again, that's, at the moment, it looks like that's a different of a second here. That 135.8 for Vettel Baker and a second and a half back for what was Maverick Reddick. It now seems to be Wylan Galliano, the driver on your screen, the 24, picking up some pace here on lap number 2. One more to go.
He was the driver who picked up the win last time out with the top step at the podium. With the official results, 200 points going to the winner, mind you, for the final. Then you, of course, have an extra 100 points if you pick up some wins in the heat races, a part of that format here this weekend once again. So a lot of these drivers looking to stack up points if you want to battle early on in the championship, be able to have an opportunity to perform, to be able to make yourself well known as a contender consistently. From track to track, there's a wide variety of circuits across this region, mind you, all the way to Louisiana at one point actually in the schedule, where these drivers are going to have some big challenges. But here today, they're using all that space coming out of the final corner to carry that full throttle and carry that pace as the clock is about to reach zeros. A couple drivers looks like they're able to pass by for extra time, but the clock reaches zeros now.
I think Mav Reddick and Vettel Baker just snuck by the checkered flag. They're going to have one more go-around. I'm not sure if Wylan Galliano and the driver right behind him were able to get that extra lap. That's the 41 of Liam Lofton. I'm not sure these two young guns were able to get another lap in the books, but that last time around, a 134.6 for Mav Reddick. He's up in a second now. Vettel Baker, a 133, so still a second difference in between your provisional pole sitter and Baker and Mav Reddick, who's chasing there in the second spot.
Yeah, and some of these drivers just saying, you know what, we're towards the end of the session, may as well see if I can leapfrog here. And the line approach is a bit different, too, when it comes to here. You're seeing some of these drivers able to get some very flat lines down with the full throttle, try and defend around this racetrack, try and hold on to positions for dear life to go around sections like turn 7 all the way up to turn 8. So a lot of these drivers just squabbling it out to finish out the qualifying session right now.
And again, just not going to be helpful for them, right? You know, side-by-side action definitely costs a lot at a place like this, you know, in terms of one-lap speed. So for the drivers on your screen here, definitely not going to fall their way here in this one. But for the drivers up ahead, you know, we talked about Lofton and Galliano. They've been working quite well together here in this quali session, and they find themselves in the top 4 spots as well. The checkered flag should be out this time by. Looks like Anderson's going to be into the pits. I'm not sure the rest of the drivers got through or got an extra lap, and I think that's it. Here in Quali, Vettel Baker on the provisional pole position. Maverick Reddick going to start alongside him on the front row. Galliano third, Lofton, Maxwell, Anderson, DeShong, Sutton, Lorang, Mondragon, and Hollis, your 11 drivers here in Kid Kart, presented by GR2 Motorsports.
Not bad a qualifying session for those drivers. Vettel Baker backing up some of the speed showcased in practice. Same for Reddick. Seems very comfortable here today. These drivers look to find all the power in their karts here in Amarillo. And I'm very curious where this next grouping of drivers gets themselves all lined up here in terms of the running order. Micro Swift going to carry a fair amount of speed around the racetrack also here for these competitors. The same for the minis, as they're going to be fiercely trying to build up momentum and draft to be able to set up the best possible time. These karts usually put on a show because of their ability to go back and forth in the pack end. With these drivers developing the racecraft, a lot of them like to go into full battle mode to start off and don't back out of battle mode.
How about the drivers that we're going to see here in this quali session? Everybody was chasing Brody Stoffel in practice 1 here today on the Friday afternoon. That race win just slipped away at Speed Sports Racing Park. He got his maiden national race victory at Rock Cup USA whenever we did go back to Speed Sports. But for this driver who's been super impressive on the national scene so far this year, he returns here with Kart CRG USA, the camp that he's with here on the regional circuit. And that kid was super impressive in the last 2 national rounds when we went to the United States Pro Kart Series. He got himself a podium and as well a double podium last weekend at the SCUSA Pro Tour. Stoffel going to look to take regional race victory for the first time in quite some time. He's a winner at TSRS, I believe, in Kid Kart competition. But since moving up to Micro Swift, still looking for that regional race victory. Comes into this weekend with a very good standing in the points.
Yes, indeed. Talking about things with the point standings coming in for the Micro side. In fact, it is going to be Tower Blackwood who has the advantage coming in, but it's a tie with Stoffel. The difference being it was the heat races that went Stoffel's direction. Oh, and some spins for the 210.
That's Bodie Beyer. Just got into the rear bumper of Brody Stoffel, and Beyer went around. Stoffel's still out there on the racetrack, and you have a big train just right behind. That's a 224 of Wyatt White. Again, came into his own at Speed Sports Racing Park. He's there with a 228 of Tyler Blackwood, like you said, hot on his heels. Beckley Anderson, older sister to Booker Anderson, in the 254 with GRC Motorsports on her CRG machine. She finds herself in the top 5. Hayden Sampson moves up to second in the 291.
Still early on in the session. That's the main thing to keep in mind here. Still a lot of opportunity for things to change over the course of about 5 minutes here. About 3, maybe 4 laps you can get based on the distance here from what we've seen so far on pace. A lot of the drivers with 7 minutes were able to go 5, 6, 7 laps for their practice times earlier on today. For some of these karts, going to need to be finding a way to work together with some of these drivers right now to find some momentum. Others like the 229 of Stoffel, who looked really good at the national scene last week, that comes to mind, seems to be absolutely flying, saying, I don't need help. I've got a fast kart myself here.
It's definitely useful for sure, right, whenever you are able to get that help, but nobody else has it in this session, so it's going to be hard. You see Anderson, White side by side there further back, and again, just kind of hurting their momentum in this session. Stoffel went quicker the last time around, a 1:13.515 from the kid out of Katy, Texas, just outside of Houston. Tyler Blackwood in second, Wiley up to third, Anderson in fourth, then White. I believe he was the driver that was affected, I think, more than anything. He finds himself down in 11th on his Croc Promotion machine. I believe they're out of the Hill Country Kart Club, just in New Braunfels, Texas as well. Fun fact, where I picked up my first go-kart. So definitely, a track that's come along quite nicely over the years. A lot of improvements there. The home of Slipstream Racing as well as a couple of other small operations out of there. But Blackwood on the Bennick machine, still in second on 1:13.926, 4/10 back, and that seems like that's been the gap so far in between Stoffel and the rest of the competition here this weekend, Justin.
Yeah, so far, looking at some of the different buffers that built up, 2 seconds right now is that gap right now in the sessions. Those two had a gap of at least near half, if not more than half a second in the final practice earlier on today. So Stoffel and Blackwood seem to be in their own league of their own to try and solidify what they're able to do around this racetrack. A lot of those team members trying to encourage these drivers to find a little bit more pace here as we're down to the final minute of this qualifying group.
Yeah, everybody's still pushing here. And again, Stoffel's lap, it's getting a lot closer than what it was before. Only 0.08 of a second in between the Bennick machine of Tyler Blackwood and the CRG machine of Stoffel, a 1:12.952 for Stoffel the last time around. Blackwood, a 1:13.034. The margins absolutely minimal here this weekend, and for everybody else further back, right? I mean, it's just the passing right now that's really hindering their qualifying performance here, Justin, especially at a racetrack like Amarillo. I've said this time and time again so far today. You really can't afford to be racing in the qualifying session with how important, it is here at this racetrack with, the straights as long as can be. And we'll see. This is one of Stoffel's closing laps here this time by. Time's just going to run out. Checkered flag going to be in the air. We'll see if this lap's any better. He's up on the seat, hopping up and down. Did he improve? And he did. A 1:12.801. Blackwood can't go any quicker. Everybody else further back stuck in a race of their own here too early in qualifying. But I think it's safe to say Brody Stoffel on the pole position in Micro Swift, presented by Gallery Furniture. You're watching Kart Chasers live coverage of the Texas Sprint Racing Series. We'll be right back with more qualifying action.
Are you looking to take the next step in your racing journey? Well, look no further than PitFit.
With 2 locations in Charlotte, North Carolina and Indianapolis, Indiana, PitFit trains drivers all the way from grassroots level karting to IndyCar and NASCAR with top-of-the-line personalized coaching to improve physical and cognitive fitness.
For more information on programs, check out PitFit on Instagram or Facebook today.
Are you ready to get behind the wheel? From Formula One to NASCAR and IndyCar, all the pros start here. For more information, check us out online at mcckarting.com or call us and go racing today.
Mitty Swift onto the racetrack now, and a return to home this weekend for Colton Schniegenberg, back with MSL Racing on the Nitro kart. That kid has had a great showing over in Europe, podium after podium over at WSK with the Ward Racing team overseas. And this weekend, partners back up with Massimo Sanchez, Lara and company on what's, like I said, a return to home for him. But again, a lot of challengers here this weekend. Tyler Moravietz in the 177 on his XPEL GFC machine has had a pretty good run so far this year. But coming into the weekend, Tanner Barsh, your championship points leader, was able to get the better of his best friend, Colton Schniegenberg, at Speed Sports Racing Park. If you look back, a last lap battle in between the two kept us on the edge of our seats. Alex Chandler comes into this weekend third. Kimo Ahmad not joining us fourth. And Simon Jack Klein, what's new colors and what you can call the closest race he has back home to Oklahoma this weekend for little Simon Jack Klein. He's joining us here with the TB Kart team as well. But we work our way along. First couple laps in the books. But everybody has been chasing down Liam Nachawati on his return to the seat this weekend after a broken wrist put him out of contention over at Speed Sports Racing Park at the opening round of the SCUSA Pro Tour. That sidelined him for a good bit, and here this weekend racing with a brace on that wrist. He looks to return to what's been a good run for this kid as well over in Europe, here in the States, and back here at the Texas Sprint Racing Series. He's been good, and as well, another one of the kiddos that was impressive last weekend, Aston Wyatt. Fasten put it on the pole position last week at the SCUSA Pro Tour at MCC for one of the rounds on the weekend, and he returns here this weekend with the AR Academy.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what Ashton Wyatt does, because he's looked pretty quick here this weekend. Last practice session only put up an 8th place run, but he is someone Wyatt has been, has been very competitive. We've seen him at SCUSA battle back and forth in what was a busy fight for the race lead both days in Cincinnati. Now the question's going to be, how is he going to fare out now in Texas, where it's a lot more different of an environment, a lot more different of a field. First time's coming on through the 151. Sets the top time by about more than a 1/10 of a second to start. Wyatt up to 6.
How about Tanner Barsh? Gets himself up to the top step here. If you look back to Amarillo last year, that kid was impressive in Mini Swift competition. He's been plagued with issues so far this weekend. The only good run he got was in the last practice session last night under the lights, and Tanner Barsh comes out swinging here today. Goes to the top of the timing charts, a 112.268 for the kid from Dallas, Texas. Nachawati in second, back to Chandler. Flores on debut weekend with TB Kart USA. With Damon as well on the wrenches for him. He finds himself up in a fourth. Cade Casper with Trackside Karting Services GFC. He's in the top 5.
Yeah, and all of these drivers starting to get some bump traps down as some of the clouds settle over the racetrack. It's going to impact the track temps a little bit here. It's been, by the way, somewhat cooler than expected. It was expected to be as high as 87 degrees Fahrenheit here today. In terms of those weather conditions, Amarillo has seen that be feeling a lot lower than that in terms of what it feels like out there. But these drivers do have to keep in mind, it's about chasing the pack, but it's also about finding your way to be able to maximize the tire temperatures with the grip. Some of these tire pressures going up 4 or 5 PSI over the course of a run alone. So you're going to have to make sure you're in that optimized window. And we're seeing a lot of these drivers make sure they stay in that said window here.
Yeah, 17 drivers total here in this class. We follow along with Marcelo Flores, Simon Jack Klein, looking to get by one of the Red Speed Racing Texas machines. It looks like that's the 157 or the 137, if I'm not mistaken here. I definitely am going to be mistaken. That's the 157, indeed. That is just providing a little bit of traffic for these drivers right now at this point. It looks like that driver, I'm not sure. I don't see the number. Oh, that's Eitayo Olisa. He's currently down in 17th. Eitayo finds himself on what, to my knowledge, could be either his first or second race here at the Texas Sprint Racing Series. But the two TB Kart boys working quite well together into the top 10. Driving by Theo Mitchell with MSO Racing. And again, it's all about the draft at a place like this. Qualifying session, checkered flag in the air. Tanner Barsh holds on. A 1:11.545. Aston Wyatt in second. Schneegenberg third. Nachawadi to Chandler. And for Flores and for Simon Jack Klein, 7th and 9th, the best they could do here in this one. Tyler Moravietz, 6th. Kate Casper, 8th. Marshall Steves in 10th. For Trackside Karting Services, GFC, Jensen Willender in 11th. Clayton Stiles, Silas Root, Nayeli Vargas, Jack Cowell, your top 15. Back with Eitayo Elisa, Cruz Rodriguez, Jaden Jolivet, and Adrian Vargas. Not with us here this weekend, but he is on property. As many of you guys may have heard his story. It's been a pleasure getting to speak with him here this weekend. He's going to be up here with us as well later on the weekend, announcing just a little bit on a class that he should have taken part of here this weekend. But he has good spirits, has a message to send out to everybody, and we'll give him the opportunity to do that later on the weekend. His recovery's been great, and a huge shout out to everybody for the efforts they've been doing. I know that GoFundMe definitely was popping as well for the Vargas family. Huge shout out to Ken and Kayla Johnson. Half of their or part of their earnings this weekend in photos are going to go over to Adrian's effort, as well to the Texas Spin Racing Series. Brittany Lowballs, there's stickers on site here this weekend. For those of you who want one, go find one, go purchase one, and all the proceeds will go to Adrian Vargas and his family. But he has a smile on his face. He's with us here this weekend, so a huge shout out to Adrian, who I'm sure is watching from his RV, and I'm gonna have to go over there later on today and challenge him to a little game of some Mario Kart. I know we're karting, and he's been making some bets, making a little bit of cash here and there, betting on that. So huge shout out to Adrian and his family joining us here this weekend. He's hoping his sister can pick it up for him here, and again, a very, very lovely family. But we switch gears over to KA100 Junior, presented by P1 Engines, as they get set to hit the racetrack. You see that helmet there at the front of the grid. Nathan Golseth back here this weekend. New colors for him. Trackside Karting Services on an OTK. Alongside him, Nico Orbezo. Two young guns that have been impressive, with David Ibarra back in the mix here this weekend.
Yeah, Goldseth, amongst the names that came up as familiar when doing the research for this weekend, was amongst the drivers. Scusa seemed very speedy in terms of his pace. From top 10 or so, give or take, was Goldseth's average, about top 15 or so, where he ended up finishing some of the races in Cincinnati. So, expecting to see him be up amongst the front runners here today, I would assume, as we see what they're able to do now in KA100 Junior as we are underway for their qualifying.
Yeah, we look back at last year here. Nathan Golseth was on road to take the regional race victory. Unfortunately, didn't go his way. Tyrone Kemper Jr. was the driver who was able to snag it just on the last lap. But again, a lot of familiar names here this weekend, and one of the ones that we saw last weekend as well, Luke Cruz for TB Kart USA here on the 824 TB Kart machine. That lime green is going to look to get up to the front here this weekend. Home race for him. Lives here in Amarillo, Texas. Has been traveling with us on the national circuit. And you see the tire warm-up getting underway here. And this is really going to stack up the field here, Justin. Everybody, these kids know it, right? You need a draft at this place to go fast and to put yourself in a good spot whenever we get into heat races.
Yeah, this is where the draft dependency really comes in. A lot of ground gained up alone by the 806 down the straightaway. So this is the main thing. Finding a way to time up those runs without costing yourself too much time at the corners, but also giving yourself a lot of momentum in the straight line. It's going to be so critical for some of these drivers in line as we get underway. Mind you, Tyrone Kemper Jr. should say, led the way in final practice by only a couple 100ths of a second. Kemper Jr. amongst the many also on the national scene.
Yeah, this is going to stack them up here a little bit. You saw the pass by Ibarra there on the inside of Golseth, and this is going to do that even more. Kemper looking to go on Orbezo. He gets clear in a turn 6. So stack them and pack them, boys, just at the end. Mason and Carson Berry with GWR. Gary Willis here this weekend, back with his camp. Those two drivers going to look to get themselves further up. We saw a good showing out of Sawyer Roussel earlier today. They're going to go on the rookie, Nico Orbezo, going to follow another spot in this qualifying session, and it's all about having good position as well here. Single file through the back straightaway. Kemper closing on the back bumper of Golseth. We'll see what the first couple laps look like. Again, the first one only a 1:13.483, not relative. That's the warm-up lap. We'll see what the marker is this time around. Ibarra first across the stripe. Nothing yet out of Ibarra. Easton Cox for high five performance, a 108.188. Kemper to second, Ibarra to third, Matthew Duquette to fourth, and one driver hit the wall on the front straightaway. The 869 out of this session early. That's Oscar Antonsen. He finds the wall on the front straightaway. 11th is all he's going to be able to do if that is given, that if none of the drivers behind him are able to improve. But as it stands, Easton Cox, quickest here in the qualifying session.
Not bad so far for him so far, but there's still a lot more time to really see where things shuffle. There should be enough time for 2 more laps, maybe, based on how much time's on the clock here for these competitors to really get something going. Kemper Jr. is a good example, just carrying a lot of momentum on the bump draft, trying to carry himself forward. The amount of kart lanes gained is about 2 to 3, 4 kart lanes alone down that big straightaway, heading up to turn 11. Top of the board goes Barry, in fact, right now. A lot more shuffling. Kemper Jr. starting off for the first couple laps in 5th.
Yeah, how about Carson Berry? What a lap that time around. And again, if you look on the track, if you look on our cameras, he has the best position right now, finding himself just right behind Tyrone Kemper Jr., who's really getting tripped up by Nathan Golseth. And for Barry, he just has that enough room to stretch his legs and to set in some good lap time. So the GWR machine finds himself on provisional pole position. This could be the final lap around for all these young drivers. They might just make it to the line in time to get one more, but Ibarra slots himself in a second, Easton Cox in third, Nathan Golseth to Tyrone Kemper Jr., your top 5 in this KA Junior qualifying session. Again, still a lot left on the table here for the drivers that are currently leading this pack away, the likes of Golseth, the likes of Ibarra, and the likes of Kemper Jr.
Yeah, right now it's just trying to stay tucked up and try and keep up with some of the potential slipstream up the road. See if Barry was able to get some improvement put down here. They come around with about 20 seconds to spare. Golseth does jump to the top of the board now. He puts himself with the 107.6s, and that's where some of this lane shuffling really comes in. Kemper Jr. saying, I just want to make some passes now. Going to potentially cost him, definitely going to cost Golseth for the final time around.
Yeah, now switch it around, all right? Kemper Jr. now is going to have the toe to David Ibarra, given he did have to make a move on that lap, so not sure how it's going to play out here, but only 100th of a second in between Tyrone Kemper Jr. and the lap that the Trackside Karting Services GFC driver Nathan Golseth was able to set the lap prior, a 107.662 for Golseth. Ibarra still out there on his lonesome, towing these boys around, a 107.769 for the Kart CRG USA driver, who's been out of the seat for about a month, went over on vacation, back here this weekend, first race back, first weekend back in the seat. No passes out of Golseth. Neither for Kemper Jr. It looks like a good lap, though. He got a really good draft to the CRG on that back straightaway. Last time around, checkered flag in the air. Can Ibarra go any better? This time across the line, he can't. Kemper Jr. steals it in the closing stages of qualifying. The kid from NOLA, the number 1 plate, your reigning champ, is on the pole position. Nathan Golseth in second, Ibarra third, Duquette fourth, Carson Berry rounds up your top 5.
There's Kemper Jr. doing exactly what he needed to do. Knew he had to find a way around Golseth to set up that drafting opportunity with Ibarra. A smart play by Kemper Jr. to set up a good qualifying run.
One driver did tag the wall there early. We'll take a quick break from the action. Go to commercial. We'll be right back with more qualifying action set to come your way.
Played it perfectly here, told him to wait. Stanfield wins the Duffy in 2024 for TV Karts.
Amarillo Kart Complex is now the official distributor for TV Kart in the continental U.S. Become a dealer today.
Champions aren't just born on the kart track. At SimShop, we deliver professional-grade simulators with the best performance-to-price ratio in the industry. Founded by racers who understand what you need, our SimMagic and Moza equipment is powerful enough for the pros, yet affordable for everyone. With unmatched customer support and a thriving community, we're your racing partner. Visit simshop.com today.
Let's go race.
Come on, man.
Florida kart racers, you asked for it, and we're going to bring it. Introducing Florida Karting Championship, FLKC, a brand new racing series coming to Florida in 2026.
Shifter out onto the racetrack now, presented by Arcane Motorsports. The All-American Badass returns to Amarillo Kart Complex. It's been almost 2 years since he's been here to Amarillo, has set the track record, gapped the field by a significant margin, and then coming off the weekend, last weekend, second place in the championship for Billy Musgrave. But this weekend, one of the young guns looking to challenge him, Aiden Rudolph, on what we saw was his debut weekend on the shifter package over at Speed Sports Racing Park, was able to get the win in the rain. And then a good showing for him, a top 10 finish at the end of the weekend at the opening round of the Squeeze Pro Tour. Didn't go his way at round number 2 in Pro Shifter, but we'll see what he can do to, take on one of the biggest names in the sport and one of the best drivers in the world in that shifter category. And for Rudolph being, the rookie here this weekend, leading that CRG camp with the likes of Noah Zars, Derek Proctor, as well as Buell out there on the racetrack in the 33, all working together in unison. And for Santa Ana Racing, John Paul Mokori returns, that rookie, only 14 years old. He was impressive at Speed Sports Racing Park. The 60 looks to have a good showing here this weekend at Amarillo Kart Complex. Very different, very long, and it's all about precision, especially on the shifter package here at Amarillo Kart Complex, Justin.
Yeah, you want to get your shifts timed up just right, especially since in a lot of areas you're going for basically your top end for your gears, right back down to the slow speed sections at the bottom of the gear package to go down multiple shifts, potentially down the straightaway. So it's more gamesmanship on how you play through the gears and how your kart is set up for the gearing for the corners to be able to then maximize straight line speed. That's going to be also important here today. Mind you, Musgrave led the way in final practice by about a couple tenths of a second. That over Rudolph. We'll see if that ends up being the case or if Rudolph was able to find a little bit more of something that he was looking for. We talked to him last night in terms of some of his preparation. He was looking very distinctly at those notes to try and figure out what can they do to keep up with that 8 kart.
Yeah, and right now it's neither of these two that are on your screen. Noah Zarsk was up there for a second. And how about the young gun, John Paul Mokori, up to the top? A 1 minute .709. What does it look like for Billy this time around across the line, getting set to go? He's down in 5th. Rudolph is in 3rd. Musgrave to the top, a 59.390. Rudolph up to 2nd. And for Zarsk, who is, I should say, a second weekend. He was debut weekend with CRG and on the Leading Edge Motorsports package last weekend at the SCUSA Pro Tour. Here this weekend, it's his debut with the Kart CRG team under the tent. And we'll see what Zars can do here on one of his final and his second and last lap this time around. Zars, does he improve? Not by much. They're still trailing. Mokori, a good showing. Buell down in 6th. Derek Proctor up to 4th. The 14. Definitely showing some pace here just in the closing stage of this qualifying session. One more lap to go here, Justin.
Final time around, and mind you, remember those times mentioned for some of the drivers in final practice? Well, they still have a good half a second. Drivers like Musgrave and Rudolph have to get up some of their personal best from earlier on today. So will they be able to get the full raw speed showcased here in this end of session? We'll have to wait and see as they reach the checkered flag, this time by 5 minutes even on the clock.
We'll look at Musgrave. He's going to be the first to cross the line. Checkered flag going to be in the air this time by Musgrave, a 59.298. Checkered flag waves. And Musgrave improved on his final lap. Rudolph couldn't. So it's all about Billy Musgrave, the factory kart man. Going to be on the pole position starting on the inside when we get into racing action. Aiden Rudolph, the rookie, on his outside. John Paul Mokori, what a qualifying session for this kid in Santa Ana Racing. The 60 starts on the inside and what's his best qualifying here in regional racing action. Derek Proctor up to 4th. Noah Zars to Nicholas Buell. Did Rudolph improve on that last lap? I don't think he did. Apologies there for the difficulties. And again, still, we got our gremlins of our own, still figuring things out, but 2:06 getting set to hit the racetrack here next. And I see some of you asking who we are. Justin Prince, alongside myself, Caleb Vieska. You have probably heard me here every weekend. And again, Prince, quite familiar on our platform, right? But Slipstream Racing 206 senior getting set to hit the track here in a couple moments.
One of the massive classes coming in. There are 2 groups going to be a part of this rotation for this and KA100 Senior. And you mentioned the lengthy entry list. That's going to be the reason why for a lot of these competitors. Now, they did share those respective data sheets on how they are going to be grouped up for those respective drivers. We'll touch upon that in a moment. It's going to get interesting how they really group together here, though. 206 Senior, for reference, seen a lot of these drivers separated out to where a lot of the big names in the KA1 are in the first session, interestingly enough, on the day. Now, this session grouping will be led by Bryce Frank, it looks like, for this respective rotation as they hit the racetrack for their 2 groupings.
Yeah, Bryce Frank, Carter Kilgo out of the AR Academy tent here on the racetrack now. Their teammate Kelvin Zing, it looks like, is going to be with the second group. Josie Chambers going to be the driver out in front. Jackson Young as well. One of the younger guys in this class for Trackside Karting Services GFC, going to lead this field up near the front. Chambers had a really impressive rookie year last year, and then being a sophomore here this year in the class, we'll see what he can do. The race win in at the IKF Grand Nationals here at Amarillo just slipped away. Rudolph was able to get the better of him in 206 Senior action. We'll see what Chambers can do here. Again, his younger brother, Sawyer, as well. We saw him on the racetrack during the warm-up sessions. But we'll see. First couple laps getting set to go underway as well. We talk about home soil for TB Kart USA. JD Lamping, they're 3rd in line. First couple laps, not too relative, but fastest so far. Chambers on that first lap. You talk about Addie Bamrue as well. Ruth is in this. Samuel Doros, Barbin, and more taking part. Landon Melson just at the back in the 652 as well. McLeod is currently 10th. Sam Toll out of the Heart of Texas Kart Club with Reed Motorsports here this weekend. In 9th, his teammate and Cameron Reed is in that second group as well. But Rafael Kraus as well on the VLR machine goes quickest here so far in the 683. And again, Justin, we touched on it yesterday, but I think this class more than the rest, it's critical to be, drafting and working together in unison. And it looks like Frank and Kilgo and company held off on their MGM machines. They're way back in the pack, and you see Chambers letting a driver go, trying to have a rabbit to chase as well. This is, this could be make or break, but again, you are burning a lap, right? You do have to go to the inside of the track. You do have to slow down a little bit. But you have more drivers, right, closing in on you. You have Lamping just right there, the 673 in tow as well of McLeod, who's just right in tow. And looks like the 612 there is going to, set the fastest lap to start things off here. And, one of the fastest laps, that's being Addy Bamrou. McLeod actually is able to improve. Him and JD didn't burn that one. So those two improve. Matthew Ruth now showing some pace in the 639. Up into the provisional pole. Sam Toll just on the rear bumper of Jackson Young on the 676. But everybody, again, it's about finding breathing room here in this qualifying session, Justin.
Yeah, finding breathing room, finding your place in line. With the 206 package, it is also very momentum-based, right? And if you end up getting checked up, if you end up trying to focus on getting around for too long, you can cost yourself a lot of momentum. Right now, working their way through towards turn 8, for example, some of these drivers pulling some defensive lines. It's hard to build up a run to make a pass unless you get a perfect setup in the first place. That we'll see in the races later on today. Now, in regards to qualifying, though, it's still going to be important to make sure you work well with who you are sorted out with on the racetrack and go from there to be able to improve and set your fastest times here. Looks like we'll get one more lap for much of the field as the top time cycle on through, Lamping to the top of the board.
That's a good lap there by JD on, again, for him, it's a full 2:06 schedule for JD here this weekend, but not for long because the reigning champ, the number one plate after what was not the best round for him at the opening weekend at Speed Sports Racing Park. He now finds himself in prime position to snag a pole position away here this weekend at Amarillo Kart Complex. That MGM AR Academy machine rolling with his teammate Carter Kilgo in tow. Those two drivers, a 1:16.417 for Frank compared to the 4:39 of Kilgo. 0.02 of a second in between them. Lamping third best with McLeod fourth, back to Young in fifth. But again, the reigning champ, a track that's treated him quite well over the years, finds himself with good pace here in the last lap.
Yeah, we have had experience working with Frank. He was a part of the Kart Chaser family a while back, if I remember correctly. So he's amongst the drivers that have been laser focused. We talked with him for a little bit. Seems like he is dialed on pace, was very confident up on the practice lines earlier on the week. But we'll see if that time sticks. Checker flag waves.
It looks like it does. The only mover was Sam Doros up to 9th. That's not it for 206 Senior. We still have the second group yet to hit the racetrack, and that includes championship, I would say points leader, but I'm not too sure about that, Justin, if you want to correct me. And indeed it is the 600 of Reagan Seville, who fell short of the championship last year to Frank. He's leading his Trackside Karting Services GFC team here this weekend with Jacob Oliver on what's his third year in the 206 Senior class. We saw him come to life at the end of his first year in 2023 with a podium. What was almost a win when he was at the AR Academy move last year. A year of bad luck. Unfortunate luck there for Jacob Oliver in the 618. He's looking for a little bit better in the warm-up session there, Justin. Oliver was impressive. A new lid, new colors on the dome piece for him here this weekend. He's going to look to be impressive, as well as Cameron Reed. The lead lady here this weekend for Reed Motorsports, her and her dad, helping that operation forward, gaining more and more drivers by the minute. With Kelvin Zing right in tow, a name that is well known around the nation, especially last year after the showing he had at Cup Karts North America at the Grand Nationals, winning a heat race in Senior Light. Zing, again, a name to look out for every time you hear about 206 racing action across the country. Here we go. Oliver leading this field away. Cameron Reed in tow. Back to Zing. Back to Reagan Seville. Can anybody beat the time set by the AR Academy MGM of Bryce Frank? That number one, a 1:16.417. 5 minutes to beat that time, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, going to be important to see where they shuffle, and this is where the group differential comes in from the session split here, especially.
Oh, wow. Kelvin Zing dropping a tire there. Got stuck on the outside. Sorry to interrupt there, Justin. Oliver and Zing just, again, trying to find position, and it looks like Zing's getting beat up here a little bit in this qualifying session. Reed's going to be released. She's up ahead, side by side there as well, with another one of the another fellow MGM just alongside him. That looks to be, not sure. Couldn't read the name on the back of the suit there. We'll wait so they cross the line. But, again, a lot of pace in this field. You can't afford to race all too much to start this one off. Oliver in prime position to get a tow here this lap.
Yeah, right now in a great spot to be able to build up a couple kart lengths. Already closed up 1 or 2 down the straightaway alone. That's how big some of the suck up can be for these drivers here. Not as big as a KA, obviously, but you still have some pull that you can build up here for a track like this. It looks like they want to get around and be able to squabble it out. Who wants to lead this group? The 609 gets dropped back in the running order.
Cameron Reed there dropped back to second. Jacob Oliver takes the point. And some side-by-side action further back. Shelby Ramirez here this weekend, a rookie in this class. And there goes Zing. Looks like he's signaling like he wants to wait a little bit or wants to make a move. Not sure, right? We're not in the seat. We're not sure what these drivers want to decide on. And I think he was pointing his teammate by, I should say chassis mate by, and he let him through. But that lost Zing quite some time. That Croc promotion machine just right behind him, going to close in on them. Oliver, I think this is going to be a good lap out of that GFC machine. We'll see what Oliver can do. This time across the line, it's Oliver, Reed, Seville in tow. Can anybody go quicker than Bryce Frank? Again, Frank didn't have to pass on his lap. Jensen Harrell, the 655. We saw Zing release them on the back straightaway, and that puts Kelvin Zing in prime position. The 666 now can strike on what could be the last lap in this qualifying session. He could join his teammates like Carter Kilgo and Frank up closer to the front of this field for the AR Academy. And back, we look at Seville. Where does he find himself? Only 11th. Jacob Oliver in 6th. Cameron Reed, she's down, I believe, a little bit ways down in 19th right now for Cameron Reed. And again, you got to remember, she did get passed on her fast lap. It looks like Harrell just made another move into the 3rd spot in line. And I think this is going to set Seville up quite perfectly here, Justin, with a good tow to Jacob Oliver.
And keep in mind, it was Harrell that was the quickest in the final practice earlier, was the only driver to go within their second bracket. Looking like they're getting into bump trap mode here to close on up. No place to really take the momentum except to ride on forward and just hope that it's going to be enough once they come across to the stripe here in this pack.
We'll see this time by. Oliver first across the line. I think checkered flag should be up in the air. Oliver, does he improve? There's a change at the front. Jensen Harrell goes to the top. Gunnar Ray to second. Frank falls back to third on the inside line. Kelvin Zing's up to fourth. More change. How about Samuel Young? Goes quickest here in qualifying in 2:06 senior.
Able to jump up by about near a 1/10 of a second as a result of their momentum. A great burst of momentum for the 698. Believe they still have time to be able to sort out themselves and keep themselves going here in this group for now. But it's going to be important to try and push forward. Remember, it was about 4 laps that Group 1 got in their qualifying session.
Yeah, so this is, my apologies there. Again, still a lot more, but that was an impressive lap by Young. We look back to 2023, got his maiden regional race victory at Odessa, Texas at Rimrock Raceway. And this weekend, it's a return to what could be the top step, at least in qualifying here for Young. That's an MGM to another MGM and Jensen Harrell. Gunnar Ray, the 605, showing some good pace, but stack them and pack them, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. Last time around for Oliver, Seville, Harrell, Checkered flag in the air. Can anybody improve? It's all changing around. Gunnar Ray currently quickest. Cameron Rita second. Kelvin Zing third. Jensen Harrell, Seville, Oliver Young, I believe, crossed the line. Couldn't do any better. But what a change here in 2:06. Senior Gunnar Ray, for the first time, going to lead the field here in 2:06. Senior, presented by Slipstream Racing, away once we get into heat racing action. How about it for the 6:05?
How about it indeed? Able to build up the run in the midst of the pack, and a lot of the names that led the way in Group 1 did not stay up there. Drivers like Chambers in particular back in 16th position.
Wow.
That is a driver second in the point standings coming into today. That's going to be a bit of a shake-up potentially for the heat races.
And how about the reigning champ as well, Bryce Frank, Carter Kyogo, who went quickest in group. They find themselves back in 9th and 10th, respectively, lamping only 11. So it's going to be a lot of work to do for the reigning champ to get himself into podium contention in the heat race. Again, we are stagnant on the starting grids. If you have a good lap, you don't, we aren't progressive here at TSRS. So you start from 9th every single race. You have to get to work every single race. You cannot be involved in an opening lap incident. But we switch gears now. 2:06 Cadet, presented by Speed Concepts Racing, coming up next.
Karts onto the racetrack just like that. So far, Ashton Wyatt has been the points leader in 2:06 Cadet competition. Last time out, picked up a 300-point day as a result of the win in the final, but also solid heat race performances and a fastest lap award of 10 points going direction 221. Now today, we'll see what happens at 254. Looks like they have to come out of the grass for a moment or so, but the rest of the field just about all bunched up and ready to fly around Amarillo.
That driver there dropping a tire in the grass, Beckley Anderson. But leading this field away right now, it looks like it's Drew Blem, if I'm not mistaken. We'll get a number on that cart here shortly. And it's the factory cart, the 207 of Yori Vargas, that is leading this field at the moment. Just right behind her, the 245 that's in tow. And they're going to be working together here early on in this session. Looks like Samson just in tow as well. The 291 sits third in line. As we work our way onto the front straightaway for the first time, Yori Vargas. Some pretty good pace out of her so far. Back to Blem. And it looks like this group is going to be split up as well here, Justin. I'm not seeing Wyatt, Stoffel, and Moore, and I actually stand corrected. They just now crossed the timing loop. Looks like they went out near the back of the grid. So Vargas, still a good opening lap in fourth. Anderson looking to wait for some company here. The 254 slows down there on the first run up to turn number 4. But the rest, like Wyatt, like Stoffel, looks like they find themselves way back in the pack, seem to be getting out of the mess and willing to work together here to try and set up some good laps here in qualifying.
Yeah, and once again, it's all about for these drivers just being able to maintain momentum and sort out how they want to go about things. And better yet, can they build some runs together in the case of those who want to be in a drafting group compared to those who have built up some single file groupings and pairings around the racetrack. It's so important to make sure you find that right pocket as a driver, because if you choose wrong, it can absolutely cost you time around this racetrack as some of the first times come on through.
How about some shuffling here? Drew Blem to the top of 117.854, and that's, again, while we wait for Stoffel and Wyatt to cross the line. And there it is from Wyatt, a 117.117. Blem second. Samson Vargas. Back to Stoffel, your top 5, but can't say enough about Yori Vargas here. She's in 4th right now, and that's a great showing for her so far here in this qualifying session. I mean, you know, she's been one of the drivers that we've seen near the back of the pack so far this year, and, you know, it's definitely showing some pace here this weekend, leading this pack away, getting herself in good track position. So how about that for Vargas? Up in a 4th, Stoffel in 5th. A couple of others, Rodriguez 6th, back to Styles, White, Dusty Strayer, a kid who was super impressive in Kit Kart last year. The 222 finds himself in 9th. Back to Silas Root, your top 10.
Yeah, you mentioned for Vargas was amongst the drivers towards the bottom of the order, believe, in the practice session. So a bit of a jump. They found a lot more what they need in terms of the setup probably, and what they can adjust to be able to maybe get some more turn, but better yet, find an extra bit of speed here. We'll have to see if it sticks for them, as there goes Wyatt, top of the board yet again while making a pass.
Yeah, that was a heater last time by for Wyatt. A 116.339. Drew Blem as well. The 215 out of Houston, Texas, finds himself into 2nd. A good showing, and Vargas still holding on a 3rd, a 116.914. A good showing there for the young lady out of Hill Country Kart Club, putting herself in a good spot here. Stoffel currently down in 5th. No help for Stoffel, unfortunately. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to improve any more on that on his last lap. A 117.342 again puts him in an okay position for heat racing action, but you know, up to his standards as well, and for Phil Pignataro's standards here this weekend. They're going to want to find themselves 4 spots higher, and hopefully hoping to start on the pole position here in this one. A lot to dissect from it here. It looks like Lasek as well finds himself in 8th. The 201, some good showing, but this time checkered flag going to be in the air. Fast and Wyatt. Some good laps for him in this session. Does he go any better his last time around? A little bit of shuffling further back. White to 11th. Todd 12th, Haswell, Strayer 14th, Kim 15th, but nobody better than Aston Wyatt in the 221. Drew Blem to Vargas. How about that for the 207? And for GR2 Motorsports, she's starting on the inside line with some of the best in the nation. Hayden Sampson 4th, Brody Stoffel, your top 5.
Really impressive in particular from Vasquez. Now it's going to be important to be able to bounce from the ring for the early going for this race, because we talked about this yesterday. Preparation for today, track position is king around this racetrack. It's extremely important. You spend too far battling on, you're going to end up being stuck in the wind, so to speak. You'll end up turning the wheel like a windmill around this racetrack. Let's get away from the puns, but it's going to be important if you want to keep up with the main drivers that you qualify well so they don't get away from you.
Sounds like engines fired on grid, but myself, Justin Prince, take a step away.
Hey, what's up, Caleb?
What's up, Brandon?
You sound defeated. A long day at the office?
Yeah, got stuck at a cat food marketing meeting for like 3 hours. I don't know a thing about cat food, and I don't even work in marketing. And then I got sent on a coffee run like I was some sort of intern. Then at the end of the day, when I want to go get gas, I just realized everything is so darn expensive nowadays, man.
Yeah, you got that right.
Like, do you have any idea how much we're spending on Netflix?
It's like $20 a month.
Do you know how much we're spending on cable?
That's like $50 a month.
And you know what isn't expensive?
Tell me.
Kart Chaser Premium. For only $9.99 a month, you can watch all of the American karting action live from coast to coast. Subscribe and become a member today.
Pole
Pauly Massimino wins in KA. Pauly Massimino is a winner in OKN Stars.
Take your driving to the next level with one-on-one coaching from 2024 OKN Stars champion Pauly Massimino. Kart rental options are available if you'd like to keep yours at home, and drivers in all classes are welcome, from Briggs 206 to Mini to KA100 and X30. With in-depth data analysis, onboard video footage review, and lead follow on-track sessions, each private coaching session will see you end as a more complete driver than when you started. Book your coaching session now.
This is Henry. Henry feels sad. Henry feels sad because it's time for his next big race and his go-kart is in bits. Henry doesn't know that Acceleration Kart Racing is the United States' #1 shop for all of your karting equipment needs. Henry also doesn't know that Acceleration Kart Racing can deliver anything from tires to race suits and even wheels directly to your front door or to the racetrack itself, quickly and efficiently, with tech support available 6 days a week. Poor Henry doesn't even know that Acceleration Kart Racing offers free shipping to mainland USA on selected product if you spend $200 or more. Do yourself a favor. Go to accelerationkarting.com and make sure that you are never left stuck on the pre-grid with Henry. Be smart and don't be like Henry.
KA Master presented by High Five Performance on the racetrack now. Their lead man, Pierce Baldus, engine builder himself with LSR, looking to take this field away. And a family affair as well here this weekend for the Faulkners. Neil Faulkner with TV Kart USA, his son Jake Faulkner in KA100 Senior. And we see the return as well as a couple of other names. Randy Rogers, the 473, multi-time champion, and Miguel Mir as well, back here this weekend, and a couple of other names that we saw in round number 1, like Slade Miller. Family affair for him here this weekend. I believe his nephew Afton Willander racing this weekend. If again, I could be corrected, but I believe again, a lot of families with us here this weekend, and as well at every weekend at the Texas Sprint Racing Series. Daniel Howie makes his return here. The 419 TB Kart machine finds himself third in line. Faulkner just further back there. Brent Harper as well, the 413, pitted with the boys from the Dallas Kart Complex. Sean Owens leading that camp here this weekend. Randy Rogers as well under that camp with motors out of DKC by Sean Owens. But Matthew Cherry, the 491, a 113.771, currently quickest. And again, a huge shout out to Scott Cherry, who was going through surgery at the opening round. We were sending him all the love, all the prayers, and he's back with us here this weekend. Good to see him. Mr. Rimrock Raceway himself, not racing, but we know he'd be having a good time, and just a little bit different perspective, right? They just announced himself with Morgan LeBaron, High Five Performance Texas on Cosmic Karts. That's going to be based out of Odessa, Texas, at Rimrock Raceway and at Hill Country Kart Club with Morgan LeBaron, the mustache man, who we haven't seen in quite some time. He partnered up with Doug Foxworth and the J3 Competition Comp Kart team out of Hill Country. And again, a new project for him here this weekend, taking some different experience, different approach here this weekend. Harper there made a move on Slade Miller. And here we go. First couple of laps. What do we have? Pierce Baldus to the top. A little bit of a change. Harper on the Kart Republic goes quicker. To Baldus, to Burkett, to Howie, and to right here, Justin.
And just like that, Harper jumps to the top of the board too. Brent Harper setting a time quicker by near a tenth of a second to start off that portion of the field. And Baldus, a name that comes up from the national scene. We've seen, believe him, last time out as well at Scoots that comes to mind.
Correct.
Yes, indeed. Was amongst the drivers that had a fair amount of battles, actually. For about 4th, 5th position was the average where they were trying to run in terms of the running order. We'll see here today, here in Texas, if they're going to be able to shine brightly here in the Lone Star State.
Yeah, how about for Miguel Mir as well? Almost, I think, 7-time champion here at the Texas Sprint Racing Series. Drove with the likes of Crosslake Competition back in the days when that powerhouse was running around with even some of our guys, right? The likes of Riley Cann back in the director's seat. This weekend, he was running with them. The likes of Rudolph, Stanfield, and Moore ran for that team. And Mir was able to get a win in Rock Vegas as well. A couple of years ago, we saw him go retro last year with that suit. And he's, as well, with teammate on the racetrack, Janae Din. His son was over on a mission trip just last week. And, you know, on as well, giving back a little bit to their home countries over in the Middle East. And here we go. This time around for Miguel Mir. He currently holds on to the provisional pole position. Does he improve? He does. A 106.642 for Mir. Pergande up to second. Harper to third. Burkett to Howie. Your top 5. And again, we saw Brent Harper go up on the timing charts there for a second. He slots down a third here. Apologies for my speed hive. Took a while to update, but Harper to Burkett to Howie, your top 5.
Yeah, so far so good when it comes to Mir in particular, though. Remember, when it comes to him, once one of the drivers with plenty of experience, including at Scooter Super Nationals. A couple of years ago, competed up in that competition. In fact, finished 29th back in 2024, but back in 2023, K100 Master had finished in the top 10. That streak going a couple races deep, actually, back to 2022 also. So you're talking about one of the drivers that runs a fair bit in this package at the national level as well. That's currently still leading your way and going to be your driver to beat absolutely here today.
What about the reigning champ here, though, Justin Pierce Baldus? He was really impressive last year in this Masters class. He was able to take the fight to them all and get the better of them. And we'll see here this weekend. He finds himself currently a little bit ways down the order here for Pierce Baldus. Only 7th. I know to his standards, that Goya-powered high-five performance machine is going to want to be a couple of spots higher here. We're at the closing stages now of qualifying. Mir holding on. Guajardo just right behind with Din in third. We'll see if anybody can go better on this final lap. Again, it's going to be close. The gap is actually quite significant. A 108.642 for Mir. Guajardo finds himself half a second back. This time across the line. Checkered flag in the air for Baldus. Can he improve? He does. Not enough, though. Up to third. Howie to fourth. Burkett slots to fifth. Still some shuffling. But nobody gonna be better than your 7-time champion, Miguel Mir. For Cruise Racing Development, the 477 quickest in qualifying. He's crossing the line now, just right behind our results here. And he doesn't improve. Still some moves. Burkett now up to 6th. But how about it for Miguel Mir? A return of the pole positions. He's going to lead your field to green later on today.
Present run by Mir once again by 7/10 of a second. It's going to be close potentially per second on back at least, you would think, based on the qualifying speed. The top set 2 all the around second, all the way to 8th, separated by just 0.2 of a second in this session.
A 108.455 was what got it done for Mir, and 7/10 back to Guajardo. That's a lap and a half there by Miguel Mir, but we move over now to 06 Junior, presented by TB Kart USA. Francisco Reyes, Geirier, Blem, Leader, Green, Johnson, Wolf, Chambers, Polaya, Edwards, Peterson, and Anderson get set to start their qualifying session here, Justin.
So far, it's been Sawyer Chambers that's been the points leader coming into today for winning the final, and also some great runs in the heat races that seen some top points, 100 total for 345. Blem and Peter going to be also up there as well. Grand total of 6 drivers so far with more than 200 points, and still very early in the championship. But if you were amongst the drivers that could score 200 points plus consistently, it puts you at least in the ballpark, at least in the conversation. The closer you get to 300, obviously, the more optimal it will be throughout the various different racetracks as you go through the season, because you get to around 310, 320, that would be your max.
We'll give a little bit of a shout out as well to our crew here this weekend that have been, working super, super hard, rolling with the punches. We have, like I said earlier, Riley Cann here in the director's seat with Trevor Blue, and the hard work that he's done to make this weekend possible for all of us and for all of you at home as well. Like many of you guys heard, issues with us and our equipment arriving late and stuck in customs up in Detroit after our trip to Canada. So to be even streaming here with you guys and, be alongside Justin streaming here is definitely it feels more of a heist, right, to be able to get it done. But as well, a huge shout out to our camera guys, Taylor Burris, Hunter Bolton, Gabriel Romo as well. All racers here and joining us. So it's a pleasure for myself, Caleb Vieska, Justin Prince, to be bringing this action to you guys. And again, so much work behind the scenes to make this possible, as well as Xander Clements at home, providing the audio for us and the entire KC crew, as well. A double weekend for us over at the Indy Karting Challenge out there on what's a full KC grassroots weekend. So we thank you all for bearing with us at home, and we're happy to bring the action live to the comfort of your home. But we focus back on qualifying action. Sawyer Chambers going to be the first to cross the line on the opening lap. But again, lap time's not relative in the opening lap. He's going to set a good marker and some good pace. Levi Meter second, Peterson, Blem, Johnson, your top 5.
Still early on in the session, though. That's the main thing right now for a lot of these drivers. We know those fast laps have come around lap 3 to 4 based on the tire temperatures and based on the momentum swings. Already some of these drivers looking and saying, I might have a 2-big group. Some others saying, hey, I want to work together here, but it has to be sorted out right. Let me on through. Seems to be some of these hand signals from the 315.
Yeah, you saw a couple of the young ladies there, Ava Blem and what looks to be Presley Anderson as well, the 399 out of Speed Sports Racing Park. Just trying to, negotiate a little bit where they're going to find themselves. Anderson going to get past her by what look to be Brandon Green in the 372. Sorry, apologies there. That's Holton Edwards in the 372 lime green TB kart machine, putting himself in line just right behind Ava Blem, who comes into this weekend second in the championship. So there goes Edwards looking for a move into the left-hander. He gets it. Blem slots back a spot. But here come the lap times again. Chambers, he improves. Poloya as well. Some shuffling here, but a 1:18.568 for Chambers puts him on provisional pole with Edwards just right behind. And again, he had to make a move on his lap. So for being only 4 tenths off, that's a pretty good showing now. Something to chase for him as well. Poloya finds himself up in a second at 360 at a Speed Sports Racing Park as well. Puts himself on the front row provisionally here, Justin.
Yeah, some blistering fast pace so far for some of these drivers, but Brandon Green and the other grouping of karts just went even quicker in the 4, so there is some big separation that's built up once again in these packs. More hand signals, yet again, still trying to sort themselves out. It's more like battling on a racetrack for the race lead than it is for qualifying. A little bit of a bump there to the back bumper.
Yeah, Francisco Reyes there looks to be the driver that was making some moves there. And again, he finds himself down in 7th. The 305 Intrepid with SRR Motorsports made a move there on the 333. Not going to help their run out all too much in this session. But here go the changes. Chambers holds on. Blem gets a little bit closer, only 3 tenths back. 2 tenths back, apologies. Edwards the 3rd. Reyes making a move on that lap, goes up to 4th. Green, and how about Rodrigo Poloya? A 1:17.566 for the kid from Houston. Dean Guerrier followed him up. The 311 up to 2nd here. So now Chambers going to have to put his foot on that gas to retake the pole position here, Justin.
I think Poloya, once was way far back in the running order, was 4th in the standings coming into today, mind you, after a decent showing in the final in particular back in February. But today seems to have the pace dialed on in for that kart right now. It's just a matter of where is it going to actually finish up in the running order as they finish up this respective session here. Poloya was 2nd quickest in final practice, mind you, in that 360.
Yeah, that kid's coming along quite nicely as well. Again, his first full year of TSRS racing action. We'll see if Chambers first to take the checkered flag. No help for him. Can he improve? No change on the timing pylon. Reyes moves up to 4th. Peterson up another spot to 10th. Wolf falls back to 11th. Anderson still 12th. Poloya now crosses the line. Dean Gearier steals it in the end, the 311. Kubica machine, a 117.156, puts him on the pole position. Rodrigo Paloya second, back to Chambers, Reyes, Ava Blem, your top 5.
Blake Carrier was amongst the drivers working with Paloya on the racetrack at the time they crossed the scoring loops. So a bit of a change there with the gamesmanship on the racetrack, but that leaves us with one more grouping, and this is another 2-4. It's the KA100 seniors that get ready to go up next year in this one, Caleb.
2 groups in this one. KA Senior presented by Kart CRG USA. And at the end of the session here earlier on today, Skinner and Jesus Vasquez Jr. Really fast for trackside karting services.
These groupings, mind you, talking about the group split. A lot of the big names I noticed were in Group 1. That's what I was alluding to earlier in this, because you have Vasquez Jr., you have Duran, you have Rudolph, you have in this grouping drivers such as Zell, that we've seen some good pace in final practice. A lot of fast drivers, but you also throw into Group 2, Hayden Phillips, Jake Faulkner, Jake French rather, that's going to be amongst those drivers. So a lot of the names that you may pop out, at least to me, in Group 1, but as proven, once you get Group 2 on the racetrack, a lot can change just based on that pack and how much rubber was put down, and better yet, how they're able to grip up in that same grouping to be able to put themselves to the top of the board.
Yeah, we wait on. Last little bit of advice from mechanics, fellow team members. The first group out on the racetrack now. Preston Pico gonna lead this field away. You see Vasquez there on screen, putting himself in third. Roussel, who again had a good showing in the warm-up session, puts himself in a good position following the reigning champion around here at Amarillo Kart Complex, with Justin Music just right ahead of him.
Yeah, all of them all getting sorted out amongst this group here, a part of this session. That's going to be the main thing as we get back to where draft is going to be very important once again, but better yet, placement in these packs is going to be critical to time up these runs if you want to find your way up to the very front of the field. Tire warming also going to be very important to make sure you get in that optimal temperature window as quick as you can, while also making sure you time up that run to put yourself to the top of the board here at this track.
We'll see what Buddy J can do here in this session. Warm-up lap now officially completed. If you want to say warm-up lap, quote unquote. But here we go. Pico ahead, and good to see Vasquez as a junior, a teammate up there for him as well. Looks like Ethan Gonzalez is just in the mix. Looks like Taylor Roddy just right behind John Burke on his return to a full campaign here this year at the Texas Sprint Racing Series. Taking up a lot of jobs in the past, helping his dad out now with the family business, but he was in the shop with you and Jeffrey and Kart CRG USA for about a year and a half, helping that operation run as well, doing some part-time racing here and there over at the Supernats back in 2023. And as well, here this weekend, the call came, like I said earlier, from Kyle Uchinsky, took it up, and now finding himself just right behind Alfred Alvarez del Castillo. Vasquez makes the move that time around. Pico not going to hold him up at all, but I think this is going to be a really, really quick lap out of the kid from California and Jesus Vasquez Jr., Justin.
He's one of the drivers that expected to do very well, as touched upon with the experience, knew that he would have to do very well in qualifying when talking about him last time out. Let's see where the time now falls through. Looks like Pico able to jump up to second, but Vasquez Jr. has things shuffled because Burke now goes to the top of the board. 107.4 for Burke.
Yeah, and Burke definitely chasing. We saw him chase there. Alfred Alvarez del Castillo was able to make the move. And now it looks like Ethan Gonzalez is the driver for Red Speed, and that he's going to be chasing this lap. And further back in the pack, Aiden Rudolph, Alex Pope, now cross the line. And here you have the shuffle. How about Aiden Rudolph up to the top of the timing charts, Santi Duran as well. My mistake was the driver in the 974 in tow with John Burke there. Finds himself up in a third. Vasquez down a fourth with Music, putting himself in the top 5. And this is a good position for Pope as well to try to send it a lap. Just, sorry, that's Ian Howell. My mistake, just right behind Aiden Rudolph.
Yeah, Rudolph with the body language, quite simple. Every time down the straightaways, it's a lot more than you would see at some of our tracks. Just ducking down, trying to get that center of weight basically focused and shuffled, but also get himself lower in the air, try and make that kart a lot more quicker aerodynamically for the straightaways to be able to build some extra speed. Rudolph gained a ton of ground down the straightaway on the kart in front to be able to close all the way to the rear bumper. That's how effective just being able to tuck down and be able to line up for that draft before you have to go back upright for the turns is here at this track.
Yeah, you saw a little bit of shuffling there. Burke put himself up to first for a second. You saw the monster tow Rudolph got to the back bumper of the 929 and Alex Pope, and now he's able to pass, but Rudolph retakes the provisional pole, 106.981. That puts him in a good standing. Burke in second, back to Vasquez, Pico, Music, Duran, Summers, Howell, Roddy, and Roussel, your top 10 provisionally.
Yeah, I think that time from Rudolph is going to be tough, but here's the main pack that's going to be the true test. They still have time to go one more time around. Here's the shuffle. Burke yet again jumps to the top with that draft pack.
Burke's been chipping away at it. Him and Santi Duran have really found enough room to stretch their legs. So now Duran slots back to third. Rudolph goes to second. Burke with a 106.945. That's a good lap out of John. Music up to fourth. Pico to fifth. Vasquez falling to sixth. Rudolph now crosses the line. I don't think he improved here, Justin. That's not going to be enough to put himself on pole. Burke holds on to it provisionally. But again, we still have another group getting set to go. And again, this group still hasn't finished their lap. They were able to snag away an extra lap. But I think Duran might just strip up John Burke a little bit on what's his final lap here. We'll wait and see if anybody can beat John Burke on his return here this weekend to a full campaign at TSRS. This time across the line, Pico, Vasquez, first to cross. Can either of them improve for Trackside Karting Services GFC? A little bit of a change, not enough for either of them. It looks good for John Burke. Roddy's up to 7th, Roussel to 8th, Summers 9th, Ian Howell in 10th. But John Burke on home turf for TB Kart USA is on the provisional pole while we wait for the likes of Peyton Phillips, Ibrahim Din, Adrian Cruz, Landon Skinner, Jose Carlos Hernandez to hit the racetrack here in a couple of moments' time.
And this group, as you mentioned, with Hernandez in particular, are going to be very important. To be able to execute Hernandez is going to be tricky to beat too, because he is one of the quick drivers in the final practices once we came to the coverages earlier on in the day. We'll have to wait and see what these drivers now do as karts continue to roll forward. And remember, some of these drivers still finishing up some of their laps, so it's going to be a little bit of a moment where they get the time to go back on the clock and be able to dictate, can they find their way to the top of the board?
We wait, and again, this class, one of the most competitive KA senior fields in the entire nation. You have 39 of the best, some of the best in the nation. You look back at last week, we saw Vasquez up at the front in X30 Pro. You saw the likes of, as well, a couple of others up there, right? You look back at last year, Rudolph was up there in at the United States Pro Kart Series, as well as more, right? The list goes on and on with the, star power here at the Tuxpan Racing Series. Jose Carlos Hernandez, one of the drivers we saw at the front of the field over last weekend at MCC. And this week, again, we'll see what the TB Kart boys can do. Dallas Dunlap, Jake Faulkner out on the racetrack now. And, again, one of their teammates in John Burke is currently up in front for the lime green TB Kart machines here.
And talking with Faulkner in terms of what to expect for the nighttime conditions later on, they mentioned that they had some troubles at times picking up the marks. We talked about the safety being a priority for drivers for that part of some of the shuffling here today. But Faulkner, it's going to be very interesting to see if he found the extra 2/10 he was looking for to be able to go to the top of the board. I asked him straight up, what needs to be done to find the 2/10? Didn't really get a straight answer to that question, I don't think.
Right, I mean, a lot of these guys like to let loose as well whenever we come up and talk to them. So good to see, they're relaxed. That's the biggest thing, especially when you come into a race weekend where, you feel like the pressure is insurmountable. But, it's definitely something you got to deal with as well. But for the lead man in Cruz Racing Development, Adrian Cruz, his return on the seat with Ibrahim Dim, teammate. Again, we were talking about him, missed last weekend. He was over on a mission trip. And he returns with us here this weekend at Amarillo. He said he was feeling tired yesterday, some long flights for him, but he's back here this weekend with Cruz Racing Development, and we'll see what the lap times look like for these two teammates who have been wicked quick all weekend long. Dunlap, Faulkner. Then you go back to Jose Carlos Hernandez and Landon Skinner. Expect those 6 drivers to show something here in this session, as well as Jake French and Peyton Phillips. Again, I was standing by on the fence line with Billy Musgrave yesterday. He said, I got to find some more power for Jake. He's lacking a little bit on the straightaways. We got to find more power. So they're going to hope they found that here in this qualifying session. First couple of laps starting to come in. Skinner, he makes his mark. He's up to 4th. Jose Carlos Hernandez is up to 8th. Phillips cracks the top 10. Adrian Cruz is in 13th. Din just right behind him in 14th. Jake French, I don't think he improved all too much on his lap there. It looks like he's further down the order, 23rd for Jake French. Faulkner able to get up to 17th, Dunlap in 18th. So French, again, still missing a little bit. You see Peyton Phillips just pulls away a little bit towards the back of the straightaway there, Justin.
Yeah, right now just having some small separation build up through the corners, maybe try and get it timed up for the straightaway once again, to where you reach the back end right before the braking mark. Seems to almost be that sweet spot to be able to get a true run built up. This time by in this pack on screen, not close enough to fully close up and take advantage fully of the draft there. But we'll see where these times now fall for these drivers. French,
here we go,
pushing forward.
Jose Carlos Hernandez is up to 2nd. More shuffling. You talked about, I was talking about Billy Musgrave looking for that power. Looks like they found it, up to 7th. Skinner's in 6th. Tyler Roberts, the 999. How about the rookie? He's up to 4th. Burke's time still holding on strong here on home soil for that team. But Jose Carlos Hernandez with a push from Landon Skinner behind. This could be a good showing for this Mexican driver that just moved over full-time here to the United States, working with Red Speed Texas, as well with Fabio over at Orsalon. A busy schedule for Jose, and he has really, really good pace. They're closing in on the Cruz Racing Development boys of Adrian Cruz, who finds himself down in 12th. Vasquez slipped all the way outside of the top 10 to 11th. And Ibrahim Din looks like he's 16th at the moment. Last couple laps getting set to go underway. Checkered flag not yet out, so I think they're going to have one more lap here, Justin, to see who's going to hold on to the pole position in KA Senior. And indeed, more shuffling. Skinner to the top. Jose Carlos Hernandez up to 2nd. Those two drivers with the toe to the 2 Cruz Racing Development drivers. That's working out quite nicely for these two on your screen.
It's working out perfectly, absolutely, in terms of their lineup. Peyton Phillips able to break that up, though. Jumps up to 2nd once again. Phillips looking better and better now as the session makes its way into its final moments or so, as we do see the blue indicating that we are basically coming up towards the end of the session here for this group. As a result, these drivers going to have to line up if they want to try and get up to Skinner. It's close margins, only a 1/10 of a second between Hernandez and Skinner for reference, 1st to 3rd.
Here we go, last lap. It looks like, and what a draft for Jose Carlos Hernandez on Ibrahim Din, and those two get together. It tripped up Din for sure. Checkered flag in the air this time by. Cruz the first to cross. Who is it going to be in KA Senior? Jose Carlos, I think, got tripped up way too much there. It looks like it's Landon Skinner. Roberts moves up to 5th. Burke slipped down to 6th. But for Landon Skinner, with the checkered flag in the air, for Tim Lowball, for Trackside Karting Services GFC, it's pole position in KA100 Senior. We take a break from the action. Dinner getting set to go underway, and we'll step away. We'll be right back when we go into racing action. The practice, the laps are done. It's time to go side-by-side racing here on the back end of the hour. 6:30, I believe, is when we go hot for heat race number 1. Myself, Caleb Yeska, Justin Prince, the entire KC crew, gonna get fed. We'll see you back in an hour.